everyone, welcome back to my channel. Now today, as you know, I am doing the stay at home tag. This tag was originally created by, I believe it was Paperback Princess, and her stay at home tag is so cute. I was really excited when I saw this one. I think it's a really great way to kind of get our minds off of the uncertainty and the stress and kind of do something fun during the quarantine time and sharing it with everyone. So this is going to be my stay at home tag and I hope that you enjoy it. So the first prompt is laying in bed, and that is a book that you could or have read in a day. And for me, that is The Wicked King. Now, this series I actually ended up reading within like 3 days. I read a book a day. I decided to show The Wicked King because that was my favorite out of the series. It was really fun and it just drew me in. Now, Holly Black's writing is really good. It's really clear, but it also kind of pulls you in, and even though this is a young adult book and it might be kind of more simple to read, the story is still complex enough that you get really pulled in and you don't always see the twists and turns that come with it. I recommend this series to, I think, everyone that I know that likes fantasy. The Cruel Prince does start off slow, but The Wicked King is amazing. And if you haven't already seen, I did do a book chat for this series, so I will link it and you should go and check it out. The second prompt is snacking, and that is a book that is a guilty pleasure because, as we all know, snacks are guilty pleasures. Now for me, my favorite kind of snack is popcorn. It is not totally guilty, but it can be. I try to get the healthy kind, but it's just the easiest thing to eat when I'm playing a game or when I'm reading a book, and I just love it. So for this one, I chose The Shadows Between Us. It is definitely a guilty pleasure read. I love this book. I don't know that it's super in-depth or super thought-provoking in that way, but it's definitely a fun, intriguing, romantic type of fantasy book that I think if you like that type of romantic, fantasy, dark, intriguing type of book, you'll like this one. The characters are very complex. They have, you know, interesting backgrounds, and I think it's just definitely one that is a fun read, even though it might not be thought-provoking. This was the Fairy Loot edition, that's why it's purple, but the regular edition I think is in red, and I think this was the February Fairy Loot book, so I'm pleased I got this one. I think this was my first Fairy Loot book that I got, and it was a good one. I got it, I started reading it. So the third prompt is Netflix, and that's a series that you want to start. Now when I read this prompt, I thought it meant a Netflix series, and I was like, okay, I guess I can talk about a TV show in the middle of a book prompt. Why not? Like, we're all watching Netflix right now, until I realized it was actually for a book series. You'll notice that I have a lot of these little blonde moments every now and then, but I eventually come to my senses and let you guys know how I got there. So that series that I want to start next is the Shadowhunter series. This is the first of the series in total, the first published book, I believe, in the series, and this is City of Bones, the first also of the Mortal Instruments. Now I have the first 3 books of the Mortal Instruments, and so I'm planning to read this soon. I am a little skeptical though that it might be a little juvenile, only because I know these books were popular when I was growing up, and I never actually got into them, I don't think. I might have, and I might just have forgotten that I read them, but I can't remember. So I'm a little worried that it'll be a little too simple or juvenile for me, and I won't like the lens that it's written from. I'm gonna give it a shot though, because I heard really good things, and I heard the Chain of Gold book is really good, and that just came out in March. So the fourth prompt is deep clean, and I'll admit during this quarantine I have not been the cleanest. I've been so lazy. I don't know if anyone else has been lazy, but besides working and doing like Booktube stuff and reading, I have been so lazy in terms of cleaning, so I really need to get on that deep clean. But the book that I've chosen for this is a book that's been on your TBR for ages, and for me that's The Immortalist. Now I got this, I think, when it was still on the New York Times bestseller list, and I got it at an airport when it was still safe to travel. This is kind of a fantastical, mystical realism story about these kids that get their fortunes told and get told when they're gonna die, and I think they kind of go on to have their lives, and one of them ends up researching and doing work in science while also trying to find some kind of cure for mortality to become immortal, and I think this kind of talks about that. I'm interested to see how the author is going to tie in fantasy immortality in the real real world, because I think this is still set in San Francisco in kind of a modern time, the same similar time that we're living in right now, minus the quarantine. And I'm intrigued to see how that's gonna work here, but I haven't read it. I'm hoping to get to it this year, and I've heard really good things. If you've read this, please let me know. Comment down below, because I'm curious to see if anyone else has dived into this one. So number 6 is Animal Crossing, which I actually recently just bought. It is really fun to play. I have a cute little island with a rhinoceros and an elephant. I can't remember their names, but they're very cute, and I didn't think the game would be as fun as it is, but it's actually really fun. It's definitely kind of got Tamagotchi-esque vibes. Like, it's a game that you should play every day, otherwise your villagers get upset. You need to like collect things and sell them and keep things alive, and you build up this village. So it's kind of like an interesting mix between like The Sims and Tamagotchi. Like, if they had a baby, it'd be Animal Crossing. But I digress. Animal Crossing has been really fun, and I'm glad I got it. So the book that I chose for this is a book that you bought because of the hype, and for me this is actually a series that I got, and it is the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J Maas. Now, I was never originally gonna read this series. I just thought like, okay, it's like a trash series, like everyone talks about it, everyone loves it, but I'm not really interested in it. But I bought it anyway. A couple of my favorite booktubers really liked this series, and Crescent City recently came out, and I wanted to read a book by Sarah J Maas before I read Crescent City. So I decided to read this series since it's her most popular series. Not to mention that I've been really interested in the Fae type of stories recently, especially since the Folk of the Air book. And I heard that these books have Fae in them, or like are written around like a Fae-ish world. So I'm hoping that's true, and I'm hoping that we get to see some cool Fae stories in this series. The 7th prompt is productivity, and I know I've tried to be productive during this quarantine, but it's been tough. And the explanation for this prompt is a book that you either learned from or that had an impact on you. And now I read a lot of books for learning, especially wisdom type books, but the one that had the biggest impact on me recently was The Power. Now, this was on New York Times bestseller list for a long time. It might still be. This is a super hard-hitting, intense, rough, dark book. I wouldn't recommend this book if you are triggered easily, because it has violence, it has rape of both genders, it has gore, it has everything. I think every trigger warning is in this one, and I would suggest that you look them up if you're interested in reading this and haven't yet. But it is a hard-hitting book. It definitely talks about what the title is. It talks about power, talks about the transference of power, it talks about how power corrupts even those who don't think are corruptible. It talks about how power can just twist and make things worse and destroy lives and destroy cities and families, and how people can use it for their own benefit and use it to reinvent themselves and kind of become something that they might not be. So this is really interesting. I have discussed this with some other book enthusiasts, and I just have told them that I don't think this is a book that I would recommend to any of my male friends, just because it is very hard-hitting in that respect. But it is something that I think people should read, just to realize the inequality in today's society and how power has played a huge role in that. So it is a good one, but it's a tough one. The next prompt is FaceTime, and that is a book that was gifted to you. Now for me, this is All the Birds in the Sky. I've been wanting to read this one for a long time because it was suggested to me by a good friend of mine, but he ended up gifting it to me for my birthday last year, and I'm glad that he did, because now I have my very own copy. It's kind of a sci-fi slash fantasy mixed book about these two factions in a world war, and I think it's very heartbreaking. I know that my friend loves his heartbreaking stories, the stories that make him feel, and I think this is one of those, and I've even heard that it's like that from other people that have read it, but I haven't read this one yet. I'm intrigued by it, and hopefully I'll get to it this year, especially because I'm hoping to get into a little bit more sci-fi and see what I like in that genre. If you've read this book, please let me know. I want to see who else has read it, because I haven't heard about this book too much, and I want to see if people have picked it up. So the next prompt is self-care, and it is things that I've done for myself during this quarantine to take care of myself, and that for me is just continuing to be active. Now, before this quarantine went into effect, I worked out all the time, I was out all the time, I walked to work, took the bus, I danced all the time, and I was also performing on a dance team. So I'm still dancing and I'm still working out, but I am definitely not doing as much as I was doing before, and I noticed a change in my happiness or mental level because of it. And I also noticed that just being stuck at home just makes me a little lazier because all I want to do is just sit on the couch and like lie there because it's just so comfortable, but I really have to get out there. So Sunday morning hikes and walks outside have been really beneficial and just really good for my body. So that's one way that I've been taking care of myself during this quarantine season. And I encourage all of you, if you are not immunosuppressed, to take a walk outside, go get some air. The bonus prompt is to name a book that is coming out soon, and I'm going to name Incendiary by Zoraida Cordova. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her name right, but I first discovered her last fall when I read her Bruja Born series. She has a great way of writing and filling your imagination with exactly what she's saying. Every time I was reading one of her books, the setting was done great and the story was also really fluid. I felt really attached to the characters. I cared about them. Even characters that annoyed you in a previous book, she makes you care about them even in the second book when you didn't think that you could. So I appreciate that about this story. And I think Incendiary is going to be just as interesting. I don't exactly remember the premise of the book, but I'm excited that it's going to come out, mostly because it's her as the author, and when I read the synopsis it was really interesting. So I recommend that you check out Incendiary if you are interested in fantasy. I think it's actually coming out in April, if not early May, and I am going to be ordering it as soon as it does come out. So that is my stay-at-home book tag. I hope that you guys enjoyed watching as I've enjoyed watching everyone else's videos. Please comment down below if you've made a video. I would love to see it and check it out. And please let me know what books you've been reading during the quarantine and how you've been taking care of yourself during this quarantine season, since I think it's really important that we all do something to make sure that we are still feeling good even though we're cooped up at home. Also, if you liked this video, please subscribe and like my channel because it does help support my channel, and I'll be making more content for you in the future. So far I'm posting twice a week and I plan to keep that up. So if you like it, please subscribe. Thank you.